I want to look at how we could solve for n if it was an unknown variable and part of a permutation. But before we do that, let's take one step back and say, hey, how could I simplify 6 pick 2 without a calculator? So 6 factorial is my numerator, and then my denominator is going to be 6 minus 2 and factorial. So then I'm left with 6 factorial over 4 factorial. Now I need to make the numerator the same as the denominator, or at least one term of it, so that I can do a cancellation. So I'm going to rewrite 6 factorial as 6 times 5 times 4 factorial, and that's going to all be over 4 factorial. So those 4 factorials will cancel out, and so you're just left with 30. Okay, so now that hopefully we remember doing that, let's solve for n if n pick 3 is equal to 60, where n is a natural number. So I'm going to go and write out my n factorial is equal to n minus 3 factorial, and that's all equal to 60. So now I want to make it so I can cancel out something on the bottom and the top. So I'm going to make it so both the numerator also has an n minus 3 factorial. So it's going to be n times n minus 1 times n minus 2 and then times n minus 3 factorial, all over n minus 3 factorial. So now we can cancel out those, just leaving us with n times n minus 1 times n minus 2 equals 60. Now here's where I could cause myself a lot of work, or I can just think about this a little bit. I could go and expand all this out, subtract 60 from both sides, and factor it, and figure out what n is. And oh, does that sound like so much work? But this question already has more information than it looks like. We have 3 consecutive numbers that are being multiplied, so something times something times something, that equals 60. Now I know consecutive meaning that they're going down by 1, so it could be like 3 times 2 times 1. Well, that's obviously not equal to 60, but you need to find 3 numbers that decrease by 1, that when you multiply them, you get 60. And so the numbers end up being 5 times 4 times 3. So therefore, now our answer isn't 5 times 4 times 3. Our answer, we want to figure out what n is. Well, n is 5 then. One last question. So solve for r if 6 pick r is equal to 30, where r is a natural number. Okay, so let's write this into our factorial notation. So we have 6 factorial and then 6 minus r factorial, and that's all going to be equal to 30. Now I need to rearrange this. So I'm solving for r, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 6 minus r factorial. So then I'm left with 30 times 6 minus r factorial. That'll divide both sides by 30. So then we're left with 6 minus r factorial. Now I'll do this division. 6 factorial divided by 30. Well, it actually might be helpful not to do this division though. It's tempting to, but you might not want to. It might be better off keeping this notation. So what I mean by that is there a way I can get 30 by just expanding this a little bit? So like obviously 6 by itself is not equal to 30, but 6 times 5, well, that's equal to 30. And then we're still left with that 4 factorial. And how that helps us now is the 30 cancels out the 30. So I'm left with 4 factorial is equal to 6 minus r factorial. Oh, so really what I'm saying then is that 4 is equal to 6 minus r is really what this, because it's factorial on both sides. So what's inside here must just be equal to each other then. So if I subtract 6 off both sides and then multiply both sides by -1, I find out, hey, r is equal to 2.